Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to today's Development Standards Committee on Tuesday 21st of October 2025. This meeting is being recorded, but it's also being broadcast live on the Angus Council YouTube channel. Can I remind all those joining us remotely to turn their microphones to mute unless they wish to speak, and indicate they wish to do so by raising their hand remotely. Can I also remind members that under Standing Order 19.4, remote members attending hybrid meetings where quasi-judicial and regulatory matters are being considered will not be permitted to participate by audio only and must have their video and camera functions switched on. Right, Laura, apologies for absence today.
Thank you, Convener. Apologies from Councillor Duff.
Thank you. And do members have any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? We'll go Councillor Melville first.
Thank you, Convener. A statement of transparency in relation to item number 7. I've had communication from one of the objectors, but at no point have I given my view, and there's no interest, so I'll remain in the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Fothergill.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, agenda item number 9, report number 320/25. I have had several emails about this seaway sauna. I have not responded to them, and I will take part in any discussion and debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fothergill. Any other? Oh, sorry, Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Convener. Item number 8, report 319/25. I know the applicant and his family and also some of the objectors as well, so I'll remove myself from the meeting for that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Stewart. Right, no more of these. Okay, we'll move on. Agenda item 3 is on building warrants, and our committee is asked to note that during the period 13th of October 2025 to the 7th of November 2025, a total of 40 building warrants, 0 demolition warrants, and 20 amendment to warrants have been approved with an estimated cost of £2,730,050. A copy of the approved warrants have been sent to all members. Is that noted?
Noted.
Thank you. Delegated decisions in item 4. Committee is asked to note for the same period, 13th October 25 to 7th November, a total of 38 applications have been approved and 1 refused under the Planning Acts through the scheme of delegation to officers. Again, a copy have been sent to members. Again, is that noted?
Noted.
Thank you. Agenda item 5 is the minute of our meeting of the 21st of October of this year. It's submitted for approval and is a correct record. Is there any comments or adjustments considered necessary by members? If not, are they approved?
Approved.
Thank you. Right, thank you. We have 4 items on the agenda today other than under planning application notice as well. So we'll kick off with agenda item 6 relating to report 317/25. The report deals with planning application number 25/00532/full for the erection of 32 affordable housing units and associated landscaping and infrastructure on land at Newton Crescent, Arbroath, and Mr. Taylor is to present the slides. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener, and good morning, members. Item 6, the first item on the planning application on the agenda is a local level planning application. It relates to a proposal to erect 32 affordable housing units and associated works on land at Newton Crescent in Arbroath. So firstly, I draw members' attention to the extract from the Angus Local Development Plan for Arbroath on the left-hand side of the screen. The intention of this is to show the broad location of the site. It sits to the west of the settlement of Arbroath, on the east side of Billet Road West, and to the west side of Newton Crescent. Moving in on to the bottom right-hand extract, so shows the same extract but in a wee bit more detail, with the location of the application site shown, roughly speaking, dashed by the red polygon. The site until recently contained a number of 4-storey tenement flats. I think there was 6 blocks of flats, which equated to a total of 72 properties. And those blocks of flats were relatively recently demolished from the site. So we now have, to all intents and purposes, a sort of cleared brownfield site, or much of the site is a cleared brownfield site, but previously accommodated 72 2-bedroom units. So members are aware that planning decisions require to be made in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. The development plan position in terms of the principle of housing is NPF4 offers in principle support for the delivery of more high quality affordable housing in the right locations, and that includes proposals for small scale residential opportunities within existing settlement boundaries. The local development plan position is broadly similar. It offers support for residential development on unallocated land within development boundaries where the site's not protected for any specific use, and what we have before us is consistent with the character and pattern of development in the area. In general, background policy seeks to encourage the reuse of brownfield land with the intention of trying to reduce the need for greenfield development. So this is on the left-hand side, we have an aerial photograph of the site. So this was pre-demolition, and the site's around about 1.42 hectares in area, and we can see the position of it relative to Billet Road West, which is located just to the left of the site. In the field on the other side of the road, we have the Scotia development of housing, which is currently under construction, and we can see the properties in the general area are designed so that they address streets and public spaces with back gardens onto back gardens. So sort of perimeter block approach with housing with ridges running parallel to the street is the sort of pattern of development in this particular part of our growth. If we move to the right, we can just see a bit more of a pictometry image, a bird's eye image of the site prior to the demolition. So you can see the fairly substantial blocks that previously were accommodated on the site. And as I say in earlier slides, 72 properties previously occupied the site, and what we're looking at today is a proposal to replace those 72 properties with 32 new properties. So in terms of the detail of what's before us, the breakdown of accommodation units is identified on the top right-hand corner. It's primarily targeted at one-bedroom properties to address an identified housing need within our growth. I'll start at the top. There is a terrace will be formed in the northern part of the site. This would involve the demolition of some currently disused garaging area in this part of the site. Housing in this area would be sufficiently distant from existing houses to comply with council standards. So I think there's a requirement for at least 12 metres from a boundary where there is an overlooking storey involved. The council standards this proposal would comply with, but the houses are designed in this area to overlook the street and the open space areas. Moving to the central section, housing in this area will be accessed from a new access onto our Billet Road West, as can be seen by my cursor. Housing again in this area identified or designed in a way to overlook the areas of open space and the streets with back gardens in the sort of out with the public realm areas back to back with the other proposed housing. In this part of the site, there would require to be some removal of trees. I think 7 trees would require to be removed as part of the development, but the open space area would be designed to incorporate compensatory planting within it. The open space area is identified primarily along Billet Road West, which reflects the open space areas that were largely provided as part of the previous scheme which occupied the site. Moving down to the bottom part of the development, access in this area would be provided from Newton Crescent via a new cul-de-sac. Housing would be provided with its own dedicated car parking for each property. I think 33 spaces would be provided for the 32 proposed houses. In terms of the open space provision that will be incorporated, that's compatible with council standards with around 3,600 square metres open space within the scheme, and that will be designed in an attractive and accessible fashion, as I've suggested, overlooked by houses within the scheme to give that sort of deal with that sort of fear of overlooking, to deal with sort of fear of crime sort of issues. We always look for open spaces to be overlooked by property. Housing within the site will be designed so that it contains EV charging, solar panels, air source heat pumps for heating, and ecological features including swift boxes and hedgehog-friendly garden fences, as is the usual for this type of development. In terms of the design of the houses, they are a mixture of single and 2 levels of accommodation, dark roofs, ridges running parallel to the street, so trying to sort of replicate the pattern of existing housing in that area of our growth. The dashed red lines in this slide show the sort of scale of the blocks that previously accommodated the site, which I think what I would suggest is the houses that are going back into the site should be an amenity improvement for existing houses in terms of things like overlooking compared to the situation that previously existed. So there are some concerns about amenity issues raised in representations, but the houses are sufficiently distant from existing housing to comply with council design standards, and more generally speaking, it's considered an amenity improvement to have a situation where you have two-storey housing or single-storey housing adjacent to you, as opposed to a four-storey tenement block, which was previously the case. So the main issue which is raised in representations relates to the parking situation. And on the right-hand side, we have the location of properties who have made representations. I've attempted to illustrate that with blue circles. And I've also attempted to illustrate the properties which have in curtilage front garden car parking with the orange circles. On the left-hand side, we have a plan which shows the parking situation which existed before the demolitions. So we had 3 areas of car parking which were identified in yellow. Each had 11 car parking spaces. So those 33 car parking spaces were available, would no longer be available, but they served 72 properties, and the development before us is for 32 properties, so that's a reduction of 40 units overall. The development has shown that it would try to retain parking for existing properties in 2 locations. There will be a new area of parking provided access from Broomfield Crescent, located to the north of the site, and the applicant has attempted to illustrate how parking will be retained for existing property on Newton Crescent in this general location here. And when that's coupled with existing front garden parking, having regard to the overall reduction, or looking at the development through the lens of the reduction of 40 units, and having regard to the advice provided by our colleagues in the road service, that is considered to be an acceptable scenario. The parking provided for existing properties complies with council standards, and provision has been maintained for existing houses within the scheme. Just have a couple of photographs of the site. This is taken from Newton Crescent. So one of the parking areas that will be lost as part of the development is this area on the left-hand side of the photograph. Houses will be built in the area fronting onto this street in this general location. These are some of the trees that would require to be removed to accommodate those houses, but compensatory planting would be provided elsewhere within the open space areas of the development. We can see on the right-hand side the existing housing. The majority of representations have come from housing within this part of the road. And on the immediate right-hand side, we can see one of the examples of one of the houses which has provided parking in its own front garden. This is the same street, but looking in the other direction. So the parking that will be lost is shown on the right-hand side of this photograph. And we can see a caravan in the front garden, just one of the examples of the houses which has front garden parking. The area on the left-hand side would be retained, and the applicant has illustrated on the plan that there will be at least 14 car parking spaces retained in this general location. This photograph is taken from Ardbellet Road West, so it's looking sort of east across the site. We can see on the bottom right-hand side, sort of behind the trees where the blocks previously accommodated on the site were. The garage block on the left-hand side would be removed and houses formed in this area, and houses fronting onto existing housing onto Newton Crescent and onto the open space areas, which will be retained in this general location. So bringing matters together, this is an application which has attracted 7 representations from 5 households. A number of issues identified in the report and addressed in the report. I've referenced in previous slides matters relating to car parking. In terms of loss of green space and trees, I've also identified the location of the trees which will be removed. That will be compensated for in new planting as part of the development. Impacts on privacy and amenity are in accordance with the council standards, given the separation of houses from existing housing and controls relating to noise limit for air source heat pumps and that type of thing. There are no issues with school capacity. In any case, this is a development which is primarily 1-bedroom units, but the consultation response from the Education Service has confirmed there's adequate capacity within both the primary and secondary school estate to accommodate any children that will be generated by the development. And again, looking at that through the lens of the 72 properties that previously occupied the site, we're now going to have 32 properties on the site. The proposal is considered to attract support from development plan policy, where appropriate planning conditions are attached to try and address identified impacts. and having regard to no objection from technical consultees, the application is recommended for conditional approval.
Thank you very much, Mr Taylor. Do members present or online have any questions for the council officer? Councillor Cowdy?
Thank you very much. It's relating to the compensatory planting.
Serena, we can't hear you very well. Is the volume of your microphone put up? Try again. Are you happy not to bother? Okay, all right, thanks. Sorry about that. Yeah, we have no other questions. Mr Clark will come to you shortly as one of the representatees. Okay, all right. In that case, if no other questions, understanding order 12 Angus Council, applicants, supporters and objectors are given the opportunity to address any points which they wish the committee to take into account in coming to its decision. Speakers will be given 5 minutes only. I'd remind speakers also that members of this committee have already been provided with the opportunity to read all submissions and thus may already be familiar with most of the points to be raised by them. Mr Clark, you are objecting to this, so I'll give you 5 minutes, and after 4 minutes I'll give you a notice you've got 1 minute left, if that's okay. Off you go.
Right, just checking you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so my family's been a resident of Newton Crescent now for 12 years, during which period we have gone through every element of this construction and the demolition of the previous flats and the premises and the 70-odd properties that were removed from the area. When these were removed from the area, they were relocated to a new estate on the other side of the Bloomfield Park, to a new estate that was then built there. During that period and before the demolition, parking was an issue on this estate, to the point where we couldn't park in front of our premises. We would have to park elsewhere. The parking that was available was not suitable at that time. In the planning permission that's been put forward, it shows 14 parking spots on Newton Crescent there, giving us a front-on parking to the path and a removal of the car park that's currently there. Right now, at 10:20 on Tuesday, there is 14 cars parked on that street while residents are at work. So when residents come home from work, that will be full this evening. And that's not 14 cars, that will be about 25 cars that will be parked outside, which doesn't provide adequate parking for the residents on this street, not for the ones on the other areas that are nearby that also park here. In addition to this, during the 12 years I've been here, excluding the COVID period where things were delayed, we have gone through about 6 to 7 years of constant demolition, construction and destruction of the roads and the environment in the area. That is all residents that have had to go through that. I personally work from home, and it is a direct impact on my ability to work and function in my work. The green space that is now being placed further away from the premises here, when there were flats in this area just across the road from me where I am sat right now, we used to have the green space between Newton Crescent. There was a green space, and then there was the tenement of flats with another green space behind it. This actually pushes it all further away from the current residents to put it over, sorry, you can't really see where I'm pointing, but past what is currently a green space and a what's brown land, I suppose, and then further away over towards the Arbroath Road West, which is again a busy road at times throughout the day. That was also a common source of the parking for those 72 people that lived in those flats, because that road used to be constantly manned, which they keep closing now because they're building the Scotia Homes development, which again is more disruption to the residents of this area. Now, I appreciate you have received a number of complaints from the residents on Newton Crescent alone, but I would also point out that those complaints have typically came from the younger people that are living on the area. The older people that are less likely to engage with your online platform have not submitted complaints, but through myself and other residents speaking to them, they are also not happy with this. Apathy in this particular area is not a sign of consent or approval or support for your plans. That shouldn't be seen as the case, because 5 people complain, it doesn't mean the other 50 are accepting of it. I say, I've got nothing more to add in terms of individual impact, I think it's disgraceful what is happening to this area. And while as a council perspective, you may see this as development and growth, you're actually killing the community that's lived here and the families that have been around this area. It's making it hell for us to live in this environment. Constant demolition, constant construction. It's not a good way to raise families. It's not a safe environment. We've had construction materials coming into our gardens for years. This isn't what it's supposed to be like to live in the area. You've got plenty of areas to develop. There's a development across the road from me. There's development around the corner from me. It's happening everywhere. You don't need to take every last bit of land to build on. Leave some of it for the actual residents to enjoy. Let us do something with the green space that's across the road. We don't need a development company to come in and do that. If the residents are given access to the land, I'm sure we can turn it into a great garden for the local community or something like that. It doesn't always need to be more housing. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, Mr. Clark, thanks for your comments. If you just hang a bit for a second, there may be questions from committee members for you. Are there any questions for Mr. Clark? Nope. I can't see any hands up. Just one, Mr. Clark, if you're still there, I think you are. Is he still online? Can you see? Okay. All right. Just out of interest, Mr. Clark, bearing in mind one of the comments that Mr. Taylor brought up that we're replacing 72 properties with 32 or 33 properties here. What was the parking situation like when there were 72 properties there?
Well, the parking for the residents on Newton Crescent, where you see the car park, it was always full. And people used to park a lot Road West, almost the full length of that street. So that would end up being a one-lane road that you could drive up and down. Again, right now, with the reduced number, the car park's still quite full. The road that is directly opposite my property, because I'm on where the junction is, currently has a caravan parked on it, and you've got construction vehicles going up and down there at the moment, and people can't park on that. On the road that turns into where Newton Crescent is, and where you've got that bend, 2 residents currently have to park on that corner, which makes it a single access route to go around, and it's actually a dangerous area to be driving around. So people are having to take the corner at about 5 miles an hour. And that's a constant. That's not occasional. That is every day.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Right. We have the agents here. Is either Mr. McCallum or Mr. Noble online? And they're open to taking on behalf of Angus Council, they're on behalf of the applicant. So have members got any questions for them? They're open to taking questions. Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you. Let's try this again. I've moved to a separate device, so hopefully you can hear me okay.
Can hear you perfectly now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's my question is around the compensatory planting. I think this will maybe for the agent or maybe for officers, apologies, but it's just the species that are going to be used. Obviously, people are concerned about the loss of that greenery and green area. How quickly do you anticipate those species becoming a size which sort of replicate what there is currently? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cowdy. Is Mr. McCallum, Mr. Noble able to respond to that, please?
Yes, hello, it's Jason Noble. In reasonably large trees to begin with, so they would be about 2 metres in height, and then we would expect them to take between 5 and 8 years to become of a similar size to the trees that are being removed.
Great, thank you.
I'm here, your convener.
Apologies, Councillor, that's me again. Just asking whether any elected members have comments on the application. Councillor Brace?
Yes, convener. I was actually wanting to ask Mr. Barnes about the traffic situation rather than...
Go ahead.
I will have a comment.
Okay.
Mr. Barnes, could you You offered no objection to this. Would you be able to tell us a wee bit about the traffic situation, because there are residents concerned about it, at least? Parker.
Thank you, Councillor Brace. So, as explained by Mr Taylor, there were 70 properties which were removed. So now we have 33 properties with 40 parking spaces, which is slightly in excess of standards. So in terms of parking provided by the applicants, it is satisfactory, and therefore the road service would not object in those circumstances.
Thanks for that.
Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Convener. I don't have any issues with this application, and I would be happy to approve, subject to any conditions.
Councillor Clark.
Good morning, everybody. Like Councillor Meehan, I'd just like to add, though, I mean, I do agree with what he's saying anyway. I'm sitting here and listening to what's going on and thinking about the cars and all the green spaces and everything. But I have to remind myself as well that we have a housing crisis. As the roads engineer reminds us, we had 70 odds, and Mr Taylor eloquently gave that to us earlier. Many times we had more than double, if my arithmetic stands me in good stead. And I know what it's like. I've seen it when I've been a long time a councillor. I've seen how badly people can park. But that can't be a consideration for me when I've got a roads engineer saying that he's satisfied. So I know we're at the stage of just comments, Convener, but I do want to pass this.
Thank you. Councillor Beattie.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Like Councillor Clark, I'm happy to support this. I think the mix of the housing is really important, because we have big demand for 4 or 5 bed houses, and also those with wheelchair spaces as well. This is really important. We do have a housing crisis, and this goes a wee bit of the way to meet that.
Thank you. Councillor Brace again.
Yes, thanks, Convener. Similar to others, I have no objection to this development at all, but I think it's worth commenting that in Angus, all our boroughs are surrounded by prime agricultural land, and that's a very finite resource. And of course, bounded by the sea, the coastal boroughs, but that's a finite resource. We have a presumption to develop, or a preference to develop brownfield sites, but they're actually a finite resource as well within our boroughs. And well, this is another case where we're replacing 72 homes that were demolished and a total of 144 bedrooms. We're replacing that with 32 homes, less than half, with, I think, 56 bedrooms, again, less than half the bedrooms. And that might, it's not really a concern at the moment, but it might someday become a concern. If we keep building half the homes that used to be on these brownfield sites, particularly when we have a declared housing emergency, it's something that's going to have to be kept an eye on. But it doesn't put me off this application in any way at all.
Thanks, Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, I'm really happy to see this coming forward. We've been told for the last while that we've got a housing crisis there, and we need to get houses built. I'm comfortable with it, and I would have liked to have seen more 4 and 5 bedroomed houses, because I keep getting told by my constituents that there's a demand for that, but the housing service will know better than me what their requirements are. In terms of the cars, you know, it's not to say that every house is going to have a vehicle there. And, you know, we're looking at this application for, as a whole, with cars for this housing development, not the existing that's there already, which Mr. Clark was talking about. And, you know, I mean, I keep hearing as well that it's not, the road out there is not exclusive to the houses. They don't have an exclusive right to park outside their own home. We would all like to do that, but sometimes we need to maybe park a little bit away sometimes. But yeah, I'm comfortable with this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stewart. Mr. Clark, I can't bring you back in. We've moved on to councillors' comments only, I'm afraid. Right. Sorry, Councillor Melville.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Much like the rest of my colleagues, I'm perfectly comfortable with this. It's supported by national planning policy, particularly 16A, C and E. And as has been said, we are in a housing emergency. We know that we need to build more homes, and in particular affordable homes. So I'll be voting for it.
Sorry, Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I fully support this application. We're desperately needing these type of houses, and I think they'll be most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. There's no other comments from councillors. In that case, I will just sum up based on what we've read and heard. As we know, this application is for 32 affordable units to be on land at Newton Crescent and Arbroath. Policy DS1 states that proposals on sites not allocated or otherwise identified for development, but within development boundaries, will be supported where they are of an appropriate scale and nature in accordance with relevant policies of the Angus Local Development Plan. Both National Planning Framework 4 and the LDP seek to encourage the reuse of brownfield land and buildings to help reduce the need for greenfield development. NPF 4 Policy 16 seeks to encourage, promote and facilitate the delivery of high quality, affordable and sustainable homes in the right locations. Angus Local Development Plan Policy TC2 supports proposals for new residential development within identified development boundaries where the site is not protected for another use and is consistent with the character and pattern of development in the surrounding area. The proposed access arrangements and the quantity of car parking spaces that would be provided is in accordance with council standards, and each plot has a dedicated parking space. The parking requirement associated with 32 new properties, 18 of which are one bedroom, would be significantly less than for the 72 flats previously occupied on the site. So as the proposal complies with the relevant policies of the development plan and there are no material considerations justifying refusal of planning application, I'm going to move to approve the application subject to the conditions stated in the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Beattie. Yeah, I should have said that. Apologies that the actual application is being, I'm moving it on the basis of subject to the amended conditions that were circulated to members. Apologies about that. Okay, and I have Councillor Beattie seconding this. So there are no amendments? Nope. Okay, that's planning application 25/00532/4 is hereby approved, subject to the conditions stated. Thank you for your time this morning, Mr. Clark, and taking the time to speak to us. We'll move on. Agenda item 7 relates to report 318/25. This report deals with planning application number 25/00544/4 for the erection of 35 affordable housing this time. And associated landscaping and parking infrastructure on land at the former St Thomas's Roman Catholic Primary School in Seaton Road in Arbroath. And again, Mr. Taylor is going to present the slides on this.
Thanks again, Convener. As you've suggested, item 7 is similar in character to the matter we just looked at in item 6. This is an application for 35 affordable housing units this time around, and it relates to the site of the former St Thomas Primary School on Seaton Road in Arbroath. So this site is at the other end of Arbroath, towards the east side, just to the sort of northwest of Seaton Road in the approximate position of my blue arrow Again, we move to the bottom right, we see a bit more detail of the makeup of the site in terms of how it sits. There is a slightly different planning policy approach on this site. I won't go over again what we discussed in terms of the approach to unallocated land, which is supportive. Policy approach, I'll just touch upon the approach to the development of areas identified as protected open space. So the areas we see in green in the Angus Local Development Plan are areas which are identified as protected open space. Now, the policy approach to the development of areas of protected open space is very much a policy which seeks to restrict that type of development and only allows it to come forward in exceptional circumstances. And one of those circumstances is where the council's open space audit identifies an excess of open space provision in that particular location. And I think the section 8.10 of the report addresses that. But in short, the open space audit for Arbroath identifies that the provision of open space is 4.23 hectares, I think, per 10,000 population, when the actual requirement is 2.43 hectares. So we have almost double the provision of open space within Arbroath that we need to provide in terms of the planning policy position. I think on top of that, it's relevant to point out that while this land is identified as protected open space, in reality, it's not land that was available to the public for use. It was fenced off within the former school grounds. And as a consequence of the proposal before us, there will be a new area of open space which is provided. So while on paper it's the loss of around 4,000 square metres of open space, the reality is it will actually provide an area of open space for the general public and for residents of the development. So a bit more detail of the makeup of the site. The site measures around about 35 hectares, and two elements to it: the area of the former primary school, which was, I think, demolished earlier this year, and the area of open space which would be developed upon, which just sits in the approximate position of my cursor, and I believe measures around about 4,000 square metres in area. In terms of the character and pattern of development of the area, which policy requires us to consider when we're assessing an application, we have a mixed character and pattern. It's primarily residential in character. We have property providing two levels of accommodation on Seaton Road primarily. We have property on Gowan Place to the south, which I think was potentially originally single storey but has had dormers added to provide a second level of accommodation in the roof space. And we have property on Bellevue Gardens to the south, which I think is primarily single storey property. I think we also have a sort of residential home type facility to the northeast. So all of the character of the surrounding area is of residential use in some form or other. I'd also point out the position of the recently constructed campus, school campus, which is located further to the west. The facilities that previously were provided within the site were relocated to the campus, which was erected fairly recently. So in terms of the detail of the proposal we have before us, it would be similar to what we've just looked at. The housing on Seaton Road will be designed so that it addresses the street, and you'll see, looking at the other side of the street, a similar relationship exists. We have housing with ridges running parallel to the street on the other side of Seaton Road, a space in the front garden, and again that would be the case here. We would have housing addressing the street, ridges running parallel to the street with some parking provided within the front garden areas. Two accesses will be provided into the site from Seaton Road. The housing located immediately to the south of those fronting onto Seaton Road would have back gardens facing back gardens, which again is consistent with our design guidance, which allows also the housing located on the southern part of the site to address what will be the open space area. Now, we don't have a detailed design of that open space area at this stage, but planning conditions are proposed requiring that information to be provided. But the important message to members is the provision of open space within that area would be sufficient to meet council standards. Moving to the west of the site, the housing which is proposed backing onto Gowan Place, I should just point out at this stage there is a small error in the report that refers to a telegraph pole located in the back gardens of property in this area. The telegraph pole is actually within the site rather than the back gardens. It's in around about this location of my cursor. But the important point here is that there will be a strip retained at the back of the housing for services, which would include an allowance for access to be made to that telegraph pole. One of the concerns raised in public comments relates to concerns about privacy and amenity, and I would just take the opportunity to assure members that the spatial standards have been met in terms of council guidance. There would be a distance of at least 12 metres retained between any first floor accommodation in this location and neighbouring property. So while the concerns raised by third parties are understood, in circumstances where the separation distance complies with council standards, that is considered to be an acceptable way to address the concerns of third parties. It's also worth pointing out, in terms of privacy and amenity issues, there is an electrical substation facility located within a structure within the site at present. That will be relocated into the area to the northwest corner of the site. Planning conditions, amended planning conditions, again, are put before members. One of those conditions seeks to ensure precise details of what that would look like, but we're expecting it to be something like a 2 square metre green box, if you can visualise what I mean by that. But I'd also reassure members that planning conditions are proposed introducing noise controls to protect the amenity of existing housing as well as housing proposed within the development. The design of houses is illustrated in the following 2 slides. I just draw members' attention to the top slide, showing a sort of street elevation of the development. The lollipops effectively would be tree planting adjacent to the houses to try and create a sense of place and create a nice, pleasant environment along Seaton Road. There would be solid garden boundary features along that frontage, which again reflects the sort of not open plan, but the sort of boundary feature found on the other side of property on Seaton Road. So the development seeks to replicate that feature. The houses which would face the open space areas, mix of what appears to be single storey and 2 levels of accommodation, but again designed to provide natural surveillance of the open space for tackling things like planning for crime prevention. And moving to the bottom part of the slide, we have the illustration of the houses which would back onto Gowan Place, solar panels incorporated into the roof, air source heat pumps for heating, electrical charging points available for vehicle charging. So features contained within the housing to address policies in the plan which seek to deal with sort of climate mitigation going forward. Just a couple of photographs of the site. This is taken, this is dated prior to the demolition of the school. I think the school was demolished earlier this year, but this was the approximate position of the school. You can see the relationship of the site to the property on Gowan Place. As I've suggested, there will be sufficient spacing between the proposed houses and existing property on Gowan Place. This is taken looking down Seaton Road towards the town centre. Excuse me. On the left-hand side, we have the areas of the school grounds which would accommodate the new housing just in this general location. Seaton Road is relatively wide. There is some on-street parking available further down, in addition to the parking that will be provided within the site, which is sufficient to meet council parking standards. So just to bring matters together, this is an application which has been subject to public comment from 4 households, and we can see the location of those households shown by the blue circles again. So 3 of those households are on Gowan Place, 1 on Bellevue Gardens. The matters raised are addressed in the report before members, and I've tried to touch on the presentation on why the proposal is considered to be consistent with the character and pattern of development in the area, and also why the proposal is considered to take sufficient regard of privacy and amenity matters. Parking within the site would be adequate to meet parking standards. Colleagues in the road service have commented no objection to the proposal subject to the amended conditions before members. Matters relating to the provision and subsequent maintenance of open space will be addressed in planning conditions. This is a proposal which is considered to comply with planning policy. There are no objections from technical consultees, and on that basis the application is recommended for conditional approval. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Mr Taylor. Initially, do committee members have any questions? Councillor Beattie.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yeah, Ed, the question I was going to ask is, the gardens, are they shared? The 1-bedroom units, are they shared gardens? I'm just looking at the diagrams here.
Thanks for your question, Councillor Beattie. So you can see the properties on the west side of the site. Each have a dedicated area of garden area. So these are the flats on the ground floor and first floor, and as you can see, each one has an individual garden area. That's maybe clearer in the properties in this location where there's more obvious garden provision for each property. But the answer to your question is each property has its own garden area as part of the development.
That's fine. And can I ask Mr. Barnes? On this diagram, are those traffic calming measures on that road? Because that kind of looks like it would be a rat run to me.
Thanks, Councillor Beattie. Yes, so that's a raised table in the middle of the bottom road there, and likewise at the three junctions, sorry.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Councillor Clark, I think you were next.
Thank you, Convener. Mr Taylor, did I hear you mention a substation and it was going to be moved? So I hope I'm not asking an unfair question here. I used to live beside a substation, so I just wondered what kind of size it was. People are always wary of noise. I never was bothered with it, but it's maybe a consideration.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Councillor Clark. We don't have elevations of the substation, but I have tried to put a slide in just in case you asked to try and give an idea of what we might expect. It's been described to me that this is the type of structure we'd expect, but members will see in the amended planning conditions we've asked for details to be submitted and agreed before it's they go ahead and build the thing, and there's also conditions attached to the permission to regulate noise emissions from that structure.
If I could come back in again, thank you for that, because I do think that's quite important.
Councillor Fotheringham.
Thank you very much, Convener. In light of the Scottish Government's ongoing review of housing for varying needs standards and the Scottish Accessible Home Standards that was set to be implemented in 2025-26, what considerations have been given in this application to ensuring that the proposed housing in Arbroath aligns with emerging expectations around accessibility, adaptability and inclusive design? Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Councillor Fotheringham. I have confirmation from my colleagues in housing that the makeup we have before us is the houses. There will be 21 houses which meets the general housing needs standard. There is 10 houses which would meet the older ambulant disabled standard, and 4 houses which would meet the wheelchair standard. You're probably testing the limit of my expertise beyond that, and my colleagues in the housing assets team may be able to provide more information if you'd like more.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr Taylor.
There's, I see Mr Noel and Mr McCallum are online. Craig, if you want to ask them to expand on that at all.
If we can, Convener, that would be perfect.
Well,
thank you.
We perhaps could do that when we get to. We'll come back to you on that one. Okay, we'll get to some questions first. Councillor Cowdy, sorry, you've been waiting.
That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, my question specifically relates to the wheelchair provision on the larger houses. So I can see that obviously it's very welcome to see there's wheelchair provision on the 2-bed and 1-bed. But I think I'm right in saying that for the 3-bed and the 4-bed, they wouldn't be wheelchair accessible. So it seems a bit of a shame given that the resource schools are in Arbroath East. And I just wondered if anyone could give me more information on that. Thank you.
Okay, it's probably opportune for me to bring in McCallum again to ask and answer that point, and also to just reiterate a response to Councillor Fotheringham as well, please. So either Jason or Ewan, please.
Yeah, that's not a problem. On the picture provided, we had housing highlighted in green and red. These are dedicated wheelchair properties and meet the requirements for housing for varying needs. So fully accessible internally. They also have external carports to cover the wheelchair accessible parking bays. All the properties are housing for varying needs standard on the ground floor. The 4-bed property is also a wheelchair layout on the ground floor, but obviously with the stairs to the upper level, that's inaccessible. But if there was a larger family with a wheelchair tenant, then the 4-bed is suitable for them.
Councillor Cowley, does that answer your question satisfactorily?
Sorry, can I just double check on the 3-bed? You're saying that they would be wheelchair accessible. Thank you.
On the ground floors, yes, they're.
Okay, Councillor, want to add, ask?
No, that's fine, convener. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jason, for explaining that. Thank you. I think Councillor Meekin saw you were next.
Thank you, convener. Just for a bit of clarification, I'm sorry if I've missed it in the report. You mentioned there was a loss of open space of about 4,000 square metres, but that would actually be replaced by additional open space. What size is that?
Thanks, Councillor Meekin. I'll just try and pull up a slide to hopefully illustrate that. So the area of open space that would be provided, or I say provided, this is the area will be retained, but that we would expect the scheme to bring forward to bring it forward in a way which is attractive and accessible to people. It's around about 3,770 square metres. The area which will be lost would be in this sort of top right-hand corner of the slide here. It's all former school grounds, currently fenced off to members of the public, and as I've suggested, while it technically is a loss of open space, that isn't something that's available to the public at present, and it would allow the open space that is maintained to be available to the public. Hopefully that makes sense.
To one question I've got, Ms Taylor, just keeping that on that slide on the screen. The strip of land where the telegraph pole or something's going to be located on the left-hand side there, that will remain under council ownership, yeah, that piece of land? And also in the access to it, because I'm looking at that wee line at the bottom, looks like it's blocked off at both ends, but I guess there obviously will be access. And my second question is, these places, or bits of land, tend to harbour litter and things like that, and whose duty is to keep that clean for both parties on either side of it?
Thanks for your question, convener. Yes, I mean, there's planning conditions which require details of how the various areas of open space within the scheme will be maintained. We would expect that information to also be clear about how that area would also be maintained. I would imagine, without having the specific details, that it will be gated at the bottom end, because if access is required, then there would need to be a means provided to get into that area. So this is all detail we believe we can secure through the planning conditions which are proposed.
Okay, thanks very much for that. We actually have one speaker this morning, Mr. Neil Thompson. Mr. Thompson, if you'd like to come and take the seat just here on our left. That's great. And on the microphone, you just press that to speak, and if you just move it towards you, so the microphone, so we'll hear you better. And that's it. And just similarly, yeah. And similarly, Mr. Thompson, you've got 5 minutes, and I'll give you a reminder when you're 4 minutes in. Okay?
Sure. Thank you.
Off you go.
Good morning. I've been a resident of Gowan Place now for over 30 years. The next is over 20, the next is over 10, and the latest ones have just come in within the last couple of years. It tends to be an area where people stay, they buy to stay. And a consideration for all of us, my own initial consideration was because it was convenient for access for the school, but also because there was no overlooking properties. It actually offers a lot of privacy down that particular road. We always kind of felt that on the opposite side, on the east side, I believe it's a council-owned nursing home, and there's kind of feeling amongst the residents that this site should actually be used as a replacement site for that nursing home when it becomes due for replacement. It's not going to be, but looking at the policies regarding school changes, they tend to be within the boundaries of their own sites. In this particular case, that would have been ideal because it would have been adjacent. However, we would have to deal with the application as it is, and it seems to us a missed opportunity. The site, so I'll move on. In the design statement, there is mention of the development being in the grain of the local area. The site is not being fully developed due to the ground level slope southwards towards Bellevue Gardens, and indeed there is a drop from the edge of the site down into the lower level of Bellevue Gardens. There is a similar slope westwards towards Gowan Place, where the ground level is approximately 1 metre below that of the proposed site. A Google search of a 1.5-storey house UK states that according to Scott Frame, the timber manufacturer, this will, and I quote, likely have a ridge height similar to or less than a full 2-storey house. End quote. The ridge height of the properties in Gowan Place is 6.1 metres. The proposed flats are 8.5 metres. The flats will therefore be approximately 3.4 metres higher, which means they will overlook the gardens and the ground floors of Gowan Place. In the environmental health response of the 22nd of October, there is comment that the residents of adjacent properties may be affected by heat pump noise and mention of the noise curves. It is very difficult for us as residents to identify what this level means in reality. While the overall limit is proposed, while an overall limit is proposed, how would this be monitored regularly? As with any fan-cooled pump, the bearings will wear over time, and it is likely that these units will exceed this limit within 3 to 5 years. There seems to be no plan to remediate this. It is noted that a 1.8 metre wooden fence is planned for the rear of the flats. Due to the positioning of the pump units, which are going to be close, might it not be better that the wall is of a breeze block or brick construction with additional soundproofing around the units? This might also be relevant to the substation, which is just a little further up in the corner. Going through some of the documentation, there is no internal mention of the internal council decision-making process. The plan was initially for 36 units on this site. There is no mention of the decision that placing 12 one-point-storey flats would be appropriate. If there was any part of the development that would be objected to, it was going to be this, and there is no information on risk assessments being made, on the likelihood of objections being made, or chances of success. Such risk assessments should be in the public domain prior to lodging the application. There has obviously been a huge amount of time spent and work done in preparation of the application, and a rigorous resident consultation should have been submitted prior to this being completed. There seems to be portals through which the residents could have been consulted prior to the application. The Local Housing Strategy 2028 is not something we as residents would normally be looking at or aware of. The draft Local Development Plan Participant Statement of 2025 opened on the 15th of September this year and closed on the 13th of October. Through Engage Angus, there is emphasis on the consultation with stakeholders. Engage Angus, such as public at large and the Community Council. When developing the local plan, place plans and draft participation statement of 24, the table of proposed methods indicates where consultation should have been undertaken and with whom. This does not seem to have been done in this case.
You've got 1 more minute, Mr. Thompson.
I would like to have talked about the poll, and I think one of the major issues is about the poll. It states in the report that it can be dealt with, it can be reached from Gowan Place. This is not true. And I have experience with working with cranes and so on through my experience in the oil and gas industry. It can't be done. I contacted AIMSCO, who are a major UK crane operator. They gave me some figures, and realistically, the only way the pole was replaced about 18 years ago. It was done from within the school grounds on the north side. There's a small area, you can see it in the diagram that was up earlier. This cannot be done. It can only be done from Seaton Road. The capacity of the cranes would be absolutely massive, and it only can be done from across the top of the flats. We've suggested that these should be 1.5-storey, single-storey cottages, and we cannot. Part of the reason for this is because of the replacement for the pole. Is that the pole was put in before the school was built. There must be a way-leave agreement that's been in there for years. So I don't understand why. There's been a lot of coming and going, obviously, over the years about this particular pole, but I don't think it's been addressed properly in the report. I appreciate it's time short. There's no flats in the area. There's no flats. The nearest flats are over half a mile away. They're Hayswell Road, Victoria Park, and beyond the shops at Mayfield Road. It's not ingrained with the development. And finally, I guess it states in the basis of design, the only 1.5-storey building that was in the actual area was the school gym, which was right in the heart of the development. these flat, that's going to move that height right over and overlooking Gowan Place. Yes, indeed.
Sorry, if just in staying in position, just in case there are any questions from members of the committee. Do members have any questions for Mr. Thompson? No? Okay, Councillor Melville.
It's not for Mr. Thompson, but it's based on something that he said, and it's for the officers, if that's all right, convener.
I was going to just, after, if there's no question, Mr. Thompson, I was going to bring the
I'm
the
happy
officers
to wait
back
if
in.
there's, yeah.
Yep, thank you. Okay, Mr. Thompson, you're free to go. To take your seat again. Thank you. Right. Just out of interest, so 2 or 3 points there of relevance. So perhaps, again, Ewan and Jason, you could be ready for these, and maybe Ed, if appropriate, as well. Just one or two things there. Just addressing, I'll work backwards, the mention of the poll there and what's required. Could somebody address that issue, please?
Yes, I think Ed touched upon it, but we've actually allowed an access zone down that boundary which will allow access to that pole in replacement. There's also electrical cables in the ground running along that boundary, so that's why we've allowed that space down the western side of the site, and both ends will be gated and secured and with restricted access, so as and when they're required we can allow the utility companies in.
Okay, so maybe I interrupted you. Would you want to come in with anything just now?
Yeah, thank you. It's in relation to the heat pumps and the noise. Now there are conditions in here which relate to that, but I wonder if we could just have some commentary, some assurance about the proposals that we're putting in place for noise there.
Thanks for your question, Councillor Melville. I wonder if my colleague from Environmental Health might want to say something about that.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Yep. My team have looked at these air source heat pumps and requested details of the particular make and model. The conditions we've recommended are fairly standard conditions based on national and international guidance for noise. And I suppose importantly, these types of air source heat pumps are actually permitted development. So once these houses were fully built, the householders could install them as a permitted development without any planning, going through planning process whatsoever. So we're relatively satisfied that they can be installed with a reasonable level of amenity based on the conditions we've recommended.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Petrie. Do you want to come back, Mr. Councillor Melville?
Yeah, thank you. And just as a further, there was a point made about the boundary being a fence rather than a wall. Are we comfortable with the fence, and kind of what are the considerations for that versus a wall in that regard?
So I think there's two parts to the answer. I think the matter was raised in the context of acoustic properties. Now, if it had been recommended to us that there was a necessity for something more substantial, then that would have been something that we could have dealt with by planning condition. Is that a sufficient answer? Would you like me to touch upon other circumstances where a fence or a wall? It's a very exciting topic. So planning policy, I suppose, tries to design houses in a situation where back gardens back onto other back gardens, recognising that you don't really want a situation where you have lesser quality boundary features in the public realm. So where we have an unavoidable situation where you have to have a boundary treatment which is in the public realm, the council design guidance looks for that to be better quality. Maybe it'll look for a wall, maybe half wall, half fence. But I think the thrust of it is if you design the houses around a perimeter block approach, where houses back onto houses, then maybe lesser quality in terms of the public realm aspect. Fences are okay because they're not seen. So that's the only circumstance where you might want something of a higher quality. In this particular case on Seaton Road, we've worked with the architects team to have the areas of front garden which are not car parking to be enclosed by boundary walls. because that is a character of Seaton Road. I think quite often in this age of former local authority property, you have things like privet fences or low walls, and that can be a positive feature in the public realm. So we've looked for that to be replicated, and the applicants come up with a solution which does just that. The timber fences are where they should be in private areas, and where it's in the public realm, it's usually of a higher standard.
I think the last point I had, just listening to Mr. Thompson on the height of the roof line on houses, I think he said adjacent to Gowan Place being, it seemed significantly higher, and the outlook they would have into the privacy of people's gardens and houses. Could you just maybe make a comment on that?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I might ask my colleague in Housing Assets to come in here, but all I would say is we have established standards in our guidance notes where this is obviously a common occurrence where you have existing houses, somebody proposes a new house, and there has to be a standard, I suppose, where you're going to introduce overlooking. And in this case, council policy requires a minimum distance of 12 metres where a first floor or overlooking story is being introduced. And in this case, the development has been designed to comply with that standard. So when we're considering the acceptability of that, where it's designed to meet that standard, it's hard for us to have or come to a view that that's not then acceptable.
Right, thank you very much for that. Is there any other questions for any of the applicants at all? Okay, thank you very much. Right, we'll move to comments from members now. Do any elected members wish to make a comment on this application? No? Okay, if there are no comments then, similarly, this application, the comments I might make in something are very similar to the previous one, so I'm not going to repeat them all, but policy DS1 of the Angus Local Development Plan supports this, and also under National Planning Framework 4, there's an encouragement of reuse of brownfield land and buildings, and we've already mentioned the previous application. Again, policy 16 seeks to encourage, promote and facilitate high quality, affordable and sustainable homes in the right locations. The policy indicates development proposal for new homes on land not necessarily allocated for housing in the local development plan will be supported within the existing settlement boundary. The Angus Local Development Plan separately states that in addition to allocated sites and existing sites, it supports appropriate windfall sites within development boundaries also. On that basis, I'm going to just move to approve the application subject to the conditions stated in the report, the amending conditions are circulated to members. So, Councillor Clark, sorry.
I was about to suggest that I was in approval for this, so I won't labour on that. I think, Convener, if you're looking for somebody to second your motion, I'd be happy to do so.
Thanks, Councillor Clark. In that case, yeah, so I'm moving it. Councillor Clark is seconding. Are there any amendments? I'm guessing not. In that case, thank you. Planning application 25/00544 is hereby approved subject to the amended conditions as circulated to members. And thank you, Mr. Thompson, for your time this morning regardless. Thank you very much for coming in. Right. Okay. Okay, so we've lost Councillor Stewart. Okay. Agenda item 8 relates to report 319/25. The application number 25/00244 is submitted on behalf of Fraser Commercial Group Limited for the change of use of the old Ropeworks building into domestic storage space, a yoga studio with wellness consultation room and conversion of small outbuildings to hairdressers at the old Ropeworks in Bench Road in Montrose. And I think, Mr. Ramsey, I think you're going to prepare this presentation.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, so as you've already mentioned, this application seeks full planning permission for the change of use of an old Ropeworks building into domestic storage space, a yoga studio with a wellness consultation room and the conversion of a small outbuilding to a hairdresser's. Can't get my thing to change. Oh, there we go. Sorry. This application has been resubmitted following feedback on initial proposals. The number of uses has been reduced with the removal of a cafe, a bakery, an antique shop, as well as a greenhouse and office spaces, all of which have been replaced with the storage space. So the application site extends to approximately 1,640 square metres and is located in a predominantly residential area in the east side of Montrose. The town centre, as you can see down here with the insert, is approximately 250 metres to the east of the site. The site itself has no land use designation, but the building is a Category C listed building, and the site also lies immediately adjacent to the conservation area. The site can be accessed both off of Bench Road to the south here and to Union Street to the north. While the development plan encourages this town centre first principle, sites outside the town centre can be supported where it wouldn't have a significant impact on the vibrancy, vitality and viability of the town centre. In addition, consideration is also given to the reuse of a vacant listed building. The reuse of this building will provide the local neighbourhood with new uses which is consistent with local living in 20-metre neighbourhoods. Given the scale of the proposals and that the building has an established commercial use, the planning service is content that it would not have a significant impact upon the town centre. Given the site is surrounded by residential properties, environmental health were consulted. The service have no objections subject to conditions requiring the submission of a noise management plan and limiting noise emissions, which will ensure that the development can proceed without a significant impact on residential amenity. So there have been 13 letters of representation received, 7 in support of the development with 6 objections. The matters raised are listed in section 7 of the report. The main concern which has been raised also by Montrose Community Council is parking provision and traffic generation. So it is acknowledged that the proposals will increase users to the site. The applicant has already provided a travel plan that outlines how travel and access could be provided. So the applicant is showing two courtyard parking spaces that are accessible parking, and also a bike storage rack for 8 bikes. Although there is a condition 2B that seeks a finalised travel plan, which we're looking for additional information such as a travel coordinator, specific measures, and how the travel plan will be communicated and promoted, as well as measures for management, reporting and the duration of the plan. So NPF 4 Policy 13 encourages proposals for low or no parking in urban areas that are well served by public transport and not create barriers to access by disabled people. The site is close to bus stops on Union Street and Union Place, as well as Marine Avenue to the south, with the town centre less than a 10-minute walk away that provides additional services. While Bent Road is a narrow street with limited parking, there is ample on-street parking around the mid-links, which is less than 5 minutes walk. Our road service have been consulted on this application and have taken into account the policies within NPF 4 and have no objections to the proposals. So in conclusion, the application seeks the reuse of a vacant listed building, which is in an accessible location and broadly compatible with the development plan, subject to conditions. As such, the planning service recommends that permission be granted. Just got a few more slides to show you. So this is the ground floor plan. So this would all be storage, either domestic storage for the applicant or rentable storage space. And then up at the top of the slide, so that is the proposed yoga studio on the first floor. And then to the bottom of the page, so that is the small outbuilding with hairdressers on the left-hand side and some more rentable storage space. And just some photographs of the site. So this is the principal elevation. So on the first floor of this building would be the yoga studio with the storage in the bottom. And then on the right-hand side, so that would be the hairdressers over to the right-hand side and more domestic storage. And then this is a view down the side of the building. It's quite long, it was quite hard to get this all in, but it's just a long single-storey building that goes all the way through the back of the properties on either side. So these are just photographs on the Bent Road entrance, looking up towards the entrance here, and then this is looking down the street to the east with the entrance just where my cursor is here on the left. This is the Union Street elevation and the entrance from Union Street. And then these are just some photographs of Union Street and Union Place, and just to show that these are wider streets and there is ample parking within these streets. And that's me, if members have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ms Ramsey. We'll start off with Councillor I've got a name drain. Councillor Clark, apologies. Go ahead.
Convener Smith. Ms Ramsey, thank you very much. This might be an unfair question, and I'm certainly not picking on you, but when you mentioned storage space, I just wondered if we can elaborate on that, because the applicant's going to have storage space, apparently, and you're going to rent out storage space. Now, that's done all over, but it's usually outskirts, you know, that like maybe a plumber will go and have a storage space for all the bigger things. So I'm just kind of wondering what that's likely to be. If you're not able to answer that, that's okay.
Probably not specifically, but as you can probably agree, it's a really unusual shaped building, and I think the applicant has really tried hard to think what uses could be done in this building. So they've put forward the rentable storage space. I don't know exactly what it's for, but I don't suspect it'll be anything different than it would be on the outskirts of town. People would just come and store things and go away. I probably can't really answer much more than that, I'm afraid.
That's okay, Ms Ramsey. And Convener, if I could just go on a wee bit. The reason I really ask is because these storage spaces, especially for workmen and people like that, they're actually quite prime, and so I wasn't trying to catch it up.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Clark. Councillor Meakin.
Thank you, Convener. You mentioned in your presentation that in the surrounding area, and you showed a slide with ample parking in the local area, but all I was able to see was double yellow lines. I'm assuming then that those are only on the corners. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Have we any other questions for the council officer? Councillor Brays.
Yes, well, again, it's a question for Mr Barnes. The objections are chiefly concerned with access and parking and traffic. Some about over-provision of yoga and hairdressing in the town of Montrose, which is not really a competent thing to consider. We're not here to decide on competition, and certainly not on something like yoga, which is all about beneficial for people's health and well-being rather than the opposite way. But I wondered if Mr Barnes could just give us a wee bit more information on the access, etc.
Thanks, Councillor Brays, for your question. I think ordinarily sites like this, if this was a greenfield site, road service would have more reservations about the lack of parking. But roads officers have reviewed the application in terms of reuse of a listed building and the policies within MPF 4 that support the site, such as policies 7, 9 and 13, particularly policy 13 in terms of giving support to developments accessible by sustainable means of transport. So on that basis, the road service is not minded to object to the application.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Could we go back to the plan that shows, I think one of the earlier slides, the Sam's you had, if you could keep going back and again. Yeah. Okay, so the photograph we've just shown is the access off Bench Road. That's correct, yeah. Now, yeah, so I think that's one of the issues is being quoted here, and also coming in here with the plan, where you've got 2 accessible car parking spaces there. If they're taken, that seems to actually block the route to get round to the storage. Am I right with that? Because that's the hairdresser's right beside it. So how do any vehicles get up to the actual line of the property where storage is?
So, looking at the travel plan that's already been submitted, it's expected that all traffic relating to the domestic and rentable storage space would access the building via Union Street. So that's what they're seeking through the travel plan.
Okay, and just show me on this plan.
So that would come from the north, down here. There is a big area of hard standing.
Right, okay, to there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's as far as they'll get?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So this southerly side of the property application will actually be effectively bare land, effectively. It's inaccessible, but if there's vehicles there, nobody else can get use of that land. It seems.
Effectively, access point for the hairdressers and the yoga studio.
Yeah. Okay. And Sabaj, just to come to, I think, the point Councillor Brays was saying as well here, any access off Bench Road is going to be minimal because there isn't much space to manoeuvre there anyway once there are vehicles there. But what's the width of the access route off Bench Road?
Thanks, Convener. It's a very narrow access. It'll be about approximately 3 metres, or maybe slightly wider than 3 metres.
Okay, so single traffic effectively only?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, thanks for answering my points. Are there any other questions from members? Seems not. Okay, in that case, we have one speaker on this application today, Miss Shirley Chain. Miss Chain, if you'd like to again take the seat there. And again, you've got 5 minutes to address committee, and again, I'll give you a minute's notice. So again, you just press the button and we'll hear from you now.
Okay, so you'll see by the slide, the house on the left is my property. It's been a family home since 1970. If the application goes ahead, it's just an accident waiting to happen. You'll see that's my driveway, 1 metre just in on the left there. So I'm pulling out of that driveway. Something's going to come round that corner right into me. The roads department, their memo said that it was substandard for both pedestrians and vehicles. They said the Union Street entrance was much more suitable. However, the previous application, they did object to it, but this time, because there's fewer businesses, they didn't object. Now, the businesses in there, they're going to have a duty of care to their staff and customers. There should be a safe walkway. It's not wide enough to make a safe walkway. The travel plan is very vague. It says that there's 1 designated courtyard parking space allocated for each of the yoga, wellness and hairdressing staff. And then further down it says 2 designated parking spaces. In the report at 8.15 it mentions a disabled parking space. So we need clarity on how many parking spaces there is and how they're going to police parking spaces. Now, I would say surely health and safety comes before the planning. It's going to be an accident. Somebody will get run over, or there's going to be vehicles crashing. It's a blind entrance, you can't see coming out. So I just don't think it should go ahead. I'd also like to point out it's not a planning permission item, but the owner doesn't own that entrance lane. He has servitude rights over it. It's not a public right of way. So I think that's really all I've got to say. Thank you.
Shane, if you just stay where you are in case there are any questions from members. I'll start this off just the lane there itself, as you mentioned, as your house is on the left-hand side. And you say you've been there since 1970, did you say? Okay. Has that lane ever been used in the time you've been there?
Yes, it was there. It was used by the Rope and Sail. So they had 2 vehicles that came in at 8 in the morning, left at 12, came back at 1, left at 5, Monday to Friday. You knew when they were coming and going. There wasn't the same amount of traffic going up and down that road in them days.
Okay. And how long did that continue? When did that stop?
I think it might have been early 90s.
Okay. But there's still the position. There's still the position that I know what you're saying. You understood when they'd been moving, but there's still the opportunity for any vehicle to come in there at any time, as well.
But there wasn't often much vehicles.
Okay, but there's still the opportunity.
Can I reply to Councillor Clark's question about the storage?
Yeah,
there's actually 2 lots of storage going on that side just now. The applicant's son is wheeling and dealing second-hand furniture, and then there's another bit behind the hairdressers. It was advertised as an office for rent. Now there's somebody going to there, but I don't think they're using it as an office. I think it must be more storage. So those vehicles are already going in and out. They're having to, one of them's a big Range Rover. He has to mount the pavement to be able to get in because it's that tight. So I've had damage to my wall on numerous occasions. My neighbour across the road's had damage to his downpipe because they basically go up this pavement just right outside his gate to be able to get in there. A transit van has to mount the pavement to get in. It's that tight. Now, I've been driving for 30 odd years, and I know how dangerous it is getting in and out of there.
Is there any other questions for Ms. Chain from members on this one? Can't see any. Okay, thanks very much, Ms. Chain. You can take a seat again. Thanks. Right. Okay, we're going to move to comments from elected members, but I think perhaps just now, again, Mr. Barnes, could you just perhaps answer, it is a bit of a concern, I have less issue on the Union Street side that I can see, but on this side particularly, looking at these photographs, is this road here that we're looking at on the right there is effectively single carriageway, or is it enough room for 2 cars? There's no double yellow lines, so I'm thinking what about parking and things?
Thanks, Convener. Yes, so that's Bents Road. It is a 2-way road, but it's not. It is slightly narrower.
Right. Okay.
Than a standard 2-way road.
And on the entrance way, sorry, into the actual the lane that Ms. Chain's referring to there, that lane we're saying is not under the ownership of the applicant. How does that affect the application?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll leave that to Mr. Taylor, Convener.
If I remember rightly, the application form does state that he does own the land. However, you don't need to own land to apply for permission. So really, from our perspective, it doesn't really have any impact on the eventual decision or outcome.
Okay. So is there do we know, again, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here as well, having seen these photographs now, the lane is blocked off there at the moment. Do we know if that will remain blocked off?
I think it would have to open. There's no way through.
Did we not say there's? Oh yeah, there's only from Union Street. It's only on the north side of the property or whatever it seems.
I was on site yesterday and went up to there, and there maybe is a gate that I didn't notice, but it certainly wasn't open. I couldn't get in through that way.
Right. Okay. Okay. Councillor Clark.
Chair, I don't know about my colleagues or yourself, but in my past, I would have been asking for a site visit to look at this. Thank you, and you've all done your very best, but I'd like to physically see this. And I realise you've been. I wish I'd known. I come along with you because I really do think it's important.
I know Councillor Duff's not present today, but I know he had misgivings about the access and entrance here. So we can, I'll take advice on this because the first time as chair, I've never had this before, a request for a site visit from members.
Appreciate that. And
No,
I
no,
know
it's
that.
absolutely fine. It's absolutely, but can I just take 2 seconds to get some advice on this? Go on.
So yes, that's obviously possible. For what it's worth, I used to live on Vince Road quite a few years ago, and the member of the public is quite correct. It's tricky. Now, we spoke yesterday a little bit about the planning balance and having to weigh up different considerations. Now, this is a site that used to previously have a sort of industrial type activity. I think in the intervening years, there was an operation within the premises called Rust that was maybe not open all the time, but there was people coming and going. Bents Road there is no opportunity really to park on this part of Bents Road, maybe right down at the bottom end towards Marine House, but not in this part. So every application we get is a balance. We have a vacant listed building which is falling into a state of disrepair. We need to find a new use for it. The applicant previously had an application with us which proposed a whole raft of different uses. Public concerns were raised, and the applicant's gone away and reduced the number of things that are proposed within the site, trying to reduce the uses within the site that would attract people. Now, clearly, there's going to be no perfect solution on this site. It's a tricky site. We consider that the applicant has made reasonable efforts to reduce the type of activities that would require lots of travel. The travel plan which would be introduced would direct customers away from coming down to Bents Road to park, away from Union Street to areas within the Midlinks where the roads are a bit wider, there is a bit more space, but it's a very accessible site for facilities in the town. So I understand the concerns that have been raised. The concerns are absolutely reasonable and appropriate. We're trying to strike a balance between trying to find a new use for a vacant listed building which has fallen into a state of disrepair and having something which is appropriate that the site can accommodate. There is no perfect world, but we do think what's in front of us strikes that balance reasonably, as best as can be achieved in the very difficult circumstances of the site. I hope that helps.
Thanks for that extra information, Mr. Taylor. Thank you. However, I'm not particularly happy with it as it stands just now. I understand under the policies, the reuse of brownfield sites and particularly listed buildings that have been referred to in policy, I think 13 and NPF 4 policy 15. But I take Councillor Clark's point of view. I think, unless anybody else, I'm going to move that we defer this application. So, Councillor Brace, do you want to come in for do this?
Well, that's what I was going to suggest, actually. I'm very familiar with the site, and I've been in there when it was operated by Montrose Rope and Sail Company from the 70s. So I'm very familiar with it. It is a listed building, and there's a reason why it's listed. You know, there's not an endless supply of rope factories left in Scotland, and this is a maritime borough. The whole history is wrapped up in the sea and in rope and sail and all the things that go with it. But, you know, I've big concerns, and I think other members of this committee would benefit from a site visit. But, you know, if this is to be developed in this or any other way, and I really hope it can be, it's going to, so much hinges on this traffic management and this transport plan, and we're going to have, you know, I don't see how we're going to be able to make a decision on this with anything other than a really concise traffic plan, not anything that's a bit wishy-washy. Maybe not, that's the wrong term. But, you know, we're going to have a clear understanding of what is required by the traffic plan and how customers, etc., are to behave and how that's going to be conveyed.
Okay. we get the council base. I think that's valid. I think that we, in the circumstances, I think, from my point of view, I know we're commenting, but I think I don't have an issue perhaps with the actual use that's being proposed here. I have just issues with the generality of access and the ability to use it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move to defer to a later date to allow a site visit at a time to be agreed. I take the point on board what you said, Councillor Brace. I think it'd be useful before this came back to committee that we have a detailed transport plan and access plan so we can see exactly how that's going to be done rather than making it simply as a condition and waiting to find out what it's going to be. I wouldn't like to approve anything subject to an unseen transport plan. So I'm going to move that. Can I have a seconder to Councillor Clark on that? Thank you. And any amendment? No. Okay, in that case then I think I'm right in saying that let me get this right, at the moment planning application 25/00244, the book full, is hereby deferred, awaiting a site visit at a date to be arranged, and then we'll come back to this committee in due course.
Can you just confirm with council officers in attendance?
Thank you.
Council officers in attendance, just to confirm. Council officers in attendance.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, at the site visit, yeah.
Yes.
And yes, do we suggest that council officers from planning are in attendance at the site visit meeting? Yep. All happy with that? Yes. Thank you, very sensible outcome, I think, at this stage. Thank you very much. Councillor Brace? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Beattie. God, what's up with me today?
It's all right. I promoted you to provost earlier on. I'm really
I
sorry.
know. I think yesterday's meetings had its impact on us all. Apologies. Councillor Beattie, apologies. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, just looking at this, when I looked at this one, I tried to look at it on the Angus Council planning portal, but it just came up as an error and we weren't able to get the documents. So we haven't seen much in the way of the slides and things that would have been within that. Can we maybe get those sent to us so that we've got them to hand? Yeah, smashing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Stewart left the room because he had the link. Okay, we'll call back Councillor Stewart. You're just going to email him, eh? Okay, actually, while we're waiting for Councillor Stewart, maybe we'll just take a 5-minute recess or so just to actually allow people a comfort break. Yep.
Again, please.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thanks very much. Item 9, the agenda item 9 today is on relating report 320/25, and this deals with planning application 25/00095 submitted on behalf of Mr. Derek Murdoch for the siting of a sauna, installation of decking and associated works retrospectively at Marine Drive in Money Feith. So, Ms. Ramsey, again, we'll let you present the slides on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, so this application, as you mentioned, is retrospective for the siting of a sauna and installation of decking on land at Marine Drive in Money Feith. The application is in front of members today as the council owns the land and there has been one letter of objection received. The land is not designated within the local plan. The site is down here, a red dot. The sauna is positioned on an area of grass adjacent to a cycle path. Following consultation with the road service, who initially objected to the positioning, they have withdrawn their objection, provided a condition is attached to any approval to ensure that the sauna is set back 150 millimetres from the cycleway, and this was agreed following a site visit by roads and the applicant. There is an area of designated open space to the north, as you can see here in the top right, as well as the blue line which shows the national cycle path. The open space is tennis courts, a play park and a skate park, and also on the north west of the site is Tayview Caravan Park. The sauna faces towards the beach and the sea, which is a sensitive area in terms of natural environment. There's a SSSI, a special protection area, special area of conservation and a Ramsar wetland. Given the sensitive area, we did consult with Nature Scotland, who had no comments. So overall, given the site is out with the sensitive area and the nature of the development, the planning service is content that it does not have an unacceptable impact on this natural environment. The location of the sauna does not raise any flooding issues. Both SEPA and Roads Flood Risk Team have indicated that the development is a water compatible use and is therefore exempt from certain flood risk constraints. With regard to amenity, environmental health have no concerns, and the planning service is content that the nature of the use would not generate significant activities that would be out of character in this specific area. So the sauna sits in a portable trailer with a raised deck constructed around about it. The sauna measures 2.1 by 2.5 metres deep with a height of 2.1, with an overall height of 2.9 metres, which includes the deck. The scale and the design of the development is acceptable in this location and is similar to other recreational structures. Overall, the design of the sauna is considered acceptable in this location and it provides a facility that is appropriate for the seaside recreational area. The small amount of land lost, which is approximately 20 square metres, is minor in comparison with the overall provision in the area. The town centre is also in close proximity. The site is easily accessible by walking, cycling, and there's a public car park nearby. The development is considered to comply with the development plan, and the planning service would recommend that permission is granted subject to a condition. Although I would do an update. Condition 1, which is the standard 3-year condition, we would seek to remove that. That's actually not required. It's a retrospective application, and condition number 2 would cover the time period required for the amended works to take place. So just looking at some other pictures, so this is obviously taken from the beach looking up. And then this is on the kind of public pathway on Marine Drive looking back towards the Seaway sauna. I had to watch yesterday because the sauna was being used by a family, so I had to be quite discreet when I was taking my pictures. One of the letters of objection did mention that the sauna sat in front of benches. However, I would point out that there are 3 benches that run alongside the sauna, so the sauna does not block any of the benches for members of the public to sit on and take in the views. This is just from further back, just so you can see it kind of sitting in the backdrop of the slight mound here. And then these are views from the west looking east. And that's the presentation. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr Ramsey. Do elected members have questions for the council officer? We'll start with Councillor Fotheringham, then we've got Councillor Clark and Councillor Brace.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I'd just like to hear why the officers think that's acceptable. It's not acceptable to me, so I'd like to hear your views.
Sorry, could you expand in terms of, is it the design, the location, scale?
It's the location. I mean, you're saying you're recommending this for approval. You know, why are you recommending that for approval?
Oh, sorry. As outlined in the report, it is a bit of green land. It's not designated. We feel it fits quite well into this particular landscape. The loss of the 20 square metres is minimal. And we don't feel that the design or scale of the building is out of character with what's in the area. So therefore, that's why we're putting it forward for an approval today.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
Convener, colleagues, I'm always a wee bit perturbed when I see retrospective. So I would just ask, do we have a reason that this thing's been built and then somebody comes along and asks for planning permission? It's a wee bit topsy-turvy to me.
So, as far as I'm led to believe, the applicant did actually speak to the council. It wasn't specifically the planning department about any licences they may need, and unfortunately weren't advised that planning permission was required, so they weren't aware that they required planning permission for this. But nonetheless, being retrospective in itself doesn't affect the outcome. We still have to assess the case under its own merits against planning policy.
I appreciate that. I just have to look at it in a different perspective. Thank you.
Councillor Brace, I think you're next.
Yes, there was no objection to this from the community council, but there was one objection from, I think, someone who lives nearby. Do we know where that objection? Do we have a slide that shows where that objector lives?
Yeah, I was going to say, Councillor, it would have been useful to see a view from that position. Councillor Melville, do you want to help out?
Dalhousie Street is a bit further away from Marine Drive. If you've been down, you know where the railway line is, and Marine Drive comes out the bottom of it. Dalhousie Street is, I suppose, parallel to the railway line, but set beyond it. So there's no direct view from Dalhousie Street to this part of.
So the person cannot see it from his or her house.
Certainly wouldn't be my expectation based on my knowledge of the area. So.
Okay, thank you.
You okay, Councillor Brace, as far as your question is
Yes.
concerned? Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Cowdy.
Thanks very much. This is a question, but I think just following on from that, the objector talks about memorial benches specifically, and obviously that's something that is very sensitive and very important to people. So I do take your point that they appear to be next to the sauna rather than behind it. And I'll take your advice on whether that sort of thing can inform this as a planning decision, but I would have liked to have seen from the other perspective how close the benches are right next to the sauna, if it is a sort of particularly sensitive area that perhaps people go to remember their loved ones. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Cowdy. Are there any other questions of the officer? No? Okay. There are no speakers on this one today, so we can go straight to comments. And I'm particularly interested to hear from local councillors. Councillor Melville first, please.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I know this area very well. I've spent a lot of time down at the waterfront in Monifieth. I've been past this numerous times, so many times, in fact, that I forgot it was there. However, I suppose this does now finally answer the question that's been asked to me a few times. Did that not require planning permission? So now we know that it did, and it's now retrospective. These things I don't think are unacceptable, particularly in a waterfront setting when we know that there is wild swimming going on and people like to use them. I think the siting is acceptable. I haven't had any complaints about the siting as a local councillor. And likewise, I've been in one or two of these in the East Nuka Fife in a very similar context, and there was no significant issues or impact on amenity there. I'm not aware of that being the case here either. As has been said, I am disappointed about the retrospective nature of this, but I accept the explanation that's been provided for that, and as such I've got no substantive issues with this application.
Councillor Clark, I think you're next.
Thank you, Convener. Just really, alarm bells ring for me when you mentioned Triple SI. That's something that I remember quite well from Aberdeenshire. So can you maybe just expand a wee bit? You know, it's often difficult to know where a sand dune is or whatever. So in relation to the Triple SI, I accept the fact that you reckon that was okay. It's just to confirm that for me.
Yeah, so all of the natural designations that I mentioned are out with or to the south of the site. So we're content that because the site itself is not within the designation, and given that it's on a portable trailer and it's only the deck and posts that are in there, that it won't have any significant impact on any of the designations, given it's not within the actual designated sites.
Thank you.
Councillor Nicholl. You're on mute, Councillor Nicholl.
That's me now. Sorry, by the look of this photograph, the place could do with a little love and a little landscaping. But prior to doing anything there, it looks not a place I would want to be going and having a sauna in anyway. Cheers.
Okay. I think we're in comments, aren't we? Yes. So Councillor Meehan first. Thank you.
Just to say, Convener, I have no issue with this application.
Councillor Fodlingham.
Thank you, Convener. I know this area well. You know, I used to go down there when I was 5 years old. As far as I'm concerned, this sauna shed is a blot on the landscape, and I cannot support this application. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fodlingham, thank you. Councillor Braze.
Well, my view on this is entirely different. I have passed that whilst walking along the beach several times. It's a subjective thing, isn't it? Is it a blot in the landscape? Well, I don't think it is. And Councillor Nichols thought it might do with a lot of some landscaping, etc. Well, I don't see that at all either. And I can well imagine why wild swimmers, etc., would really love that facility and the look of it and the positioning of it and its ruggedness on a coastline. So, you know, when it comes to what something looks like, of course there can be differing opinions.
Are there any other comments at the moment? No? Okay. Something I'm really in two minds with this one personally. I visited before and wondered, but I came along the beach, walked on the beach and saw it and wondered, what the heck's that? And I did come today actually thinking that I was going to actually recommend to not approve, recommend to refuse on this. This view here, I know Councillor Nicholl has mentioned about it needs a good clean-up, but that land along there on the left-hand side actually, if you like, complements the situation of it. Is that a junction there as well? So I'm kind of changing my mind what I'm thinking about here. I know I've spoken to one or two councillors about thoughts on this and all the rest subjectively, but yeah, it's a difficult one. I think we've heard the application as a retrospective one, and I'm just questioning myself at the moment. Was this sauna not there at the time of the original application, and we would have had to see an image of it? Would I have recommended approval at that point? Personally, I doubt it, because it would have been a change to the effective landscape and amenity of the landscape. I'll let you come in, Councillor Brays.
Yes, well, thanks, Convener, and it's a point of clarification. Are we allowed to give weight to the fact that this is a retrospective application?
I suppose the quick answer to that would be no. We have to deal with it in terms of land use, so does it comply with policy or not?
Thank you.
Councillor Beattie, I think you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. When I saw the papers on this and I saw the location of it, my immediate response was, that's just so out of place. And I personally, if I was having that, I would move it either further to the right, into a corner, or further to the left. It just looks so out of place there. Photographs, on the other hand, make me question my initial thoughts as well. So, like that, I'm in two minds on this one.
Exactly in the same position as I am, Councillor Beattie, on this one. I mean, we've got to consider the amenity impact in here. Is it insignificant or is it significant? It's noted that the proposal is considered to be in keeping with the recreational context, and I get that. Right next to the caravan, effectively the static caravan park, etc. as well. So again, question the impact on the area and the landscape. Parks and burial grounds have raised no objection, and the development does not impact directly on the adjacent memorial benches. I know it's Councillor Cowdery has said here. Yeah, that's a difficult one. The application also requires a licence as well to operate as well. We may bear that in mind. Okay, had this application come forward in the normal way, i.e. not retrospective, I suspect questions might have been raised as regards its location, and others might be considered more appropriate for the development. However, Planning Authority can only consider the current application location as submitted. Okay, regardless, I don't feel this sauna is in the right exact location, and simply because it's really been placed where it is, it's not due reason to accept it. Other locations could be deemed more acceptable without having an impact on the immediate amenity as this does, in my opinion. Okay, as such, I think I'm going to allow discussion, allow debate, allow for an amendment. I'm going to move refusal of this application on the following basis: on Policy 4 on natural places, Policy 10 coastal development, Policy 14 design quality in place, and Policy 20 on blue and green infrastructure. There are also 4 policies: the Angus Local Development Plan, DS3, DS4, PV1 and PV2. And perhaps PV16. So on that part, do I have a seconder to that? Councillor Clark? Sorry, Councillor Flanagan, sorry. But I will...
Fair, Convener.
Yeah, for the local council. Okay, Councillor Buddingham seconding there. So I'll go for an amendment. Is there any amendment? Councillor Melville, do you want to wish to raise an amendment?
Yes, thanks, Convener. I move that we approve for the reasons set out in the report. I do not accept that it reduces amenity. I actually would propose the contrary, that it adds to the amenity of the local area, providing a service that doesn't exist there at the minute, and therefore I would move approval.
Thank you. And seconder, Councillor Meehan. Okay, thank you. Right, okay, on this one, I knew it's going to be difficult. We're going to go to vote, and just when you're ready.
Thank you, Convener. The motion by yourself, seconded by Councillor Fotheringham, is to refuse the application for the reasons outlined by yourself, Convener. The amendment by Councillor Melville, seconded by Councillor Meekin, is to approve the application for the reason and subject to the amended conditions as outlined by Ms Ramsey. Please vote motion on amendment. Convener.
Motion.
Councillor McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor Beattie.
Motion.
Councillor Braze.
Amendment.
Councillor Clark. Motion. Councillor Cowdy.
Motion.
Councillor Cruikshanks.
Amendment.
Was that amendment? Sorry, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Fotheringham.
Motion.
Councillor Meekin.
Amendment.
Councillor Melville.
Amendment.
Councillor Nicholl.
Councillor Nicholl, are you there?
And Councillor Stewart.
Motion.
There is 7 votes for the motion and 4 votes for the amendment. Therefore, the motion is carried. Just to confirm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Planning application 25/00095 full is hereby refused. Okay. I will say that I would like this potential application to come back perhaps another time for it to be actually heard again. Thank you. Agenda item 10 relates to report 321 of week 25, and the report advises the committee that a proposal of application notice has been submitted by Crawford Architecture on behalf of Montrose Port Authority in respect of a major development for employment comprising office, general industrial and storage and distribution uses at the former Trotties Road, Montrose. The committee is invited to identify issues which would like to see addressed in the planning application that is subsequently submitted and that could be added to those shown in paragraph 4 of the report. Mr. Taylor?
Thanks, Convener. Just a really short one here. So this is just to introduce I suppose, prospective planning application that we can potentially expect to see around 3 months from now at the earliest for a proposal at the allocated employment land to the north of Montrose that would be developed by the Port Authority to develop the site effectively for employment uses. So this slide shows the location of the site relative to the northern part of the town, and you'll see the red dashed line and its relationship to the colouring on the slide. And the colouring represents, the pink colouring represents land which is protected for employment purposes. And the hatched area just to the east or the right-hand side of that is also protected for new employment uses that are yet to come forward. So this is an area of Montrose where we have allocated the land and safeguarded that land for employment purposes, and the application we're likely to see is basically consistent with that allocation. So it looks to bring forward employment uses on land which we protect for employment purposes. And on that basis, the sort of key issues that are identified in the report really focus on detailed matters rather than matters of principle, because this is an area where the principle for this type of activity is established. But at paragraph 4.4, we identify what we consider, officers consider to be the key considerations, and members are obviously invited to identify any additional matters they would like us to raise with the applicant in terms of the pre-application process, and in terms of what any subsequent planning application should incorporate.
Okay, thanks, Mr Taylor. So you have before you, just again, I'm looking to see if there are any additional items you wish to be considered in the report. Councillor Melville.
Yeah, and I know that this is standard, but it's always good to make this point, given that it's to do with employment and training, would be about public transport links, particularly in that apartment rows. So.
Particularly, I'm not throwing it at you, but Councillor Brace and also Councillor Stewart as local members, is there anything particular you consider to be required to be added?
Well, having looked at it over the last few days, I've been racking my brains, but I think that what I would be asking is covered already, and I'd be quite content to leave it at that just now.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Brace. Councillor Stewart, do you have anything to add or not?
Yeah, no, I've got nothing to add to that. We'll see when the application eventually comes in, but at this point, no, nothing to add.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Stewart. Do any other members have any contributions they want to make at this stage? Yeah, so no other member contributions on this one? No, okay, thanks very much. That is enough, I think, for planning officers in that case. Right, thank you. That brings this meeting of Development Standards to an end today. We, of course, will look out for a site visit for the Montrose application we referred to. Thanks everyone for their attendance and contributions. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener.